Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Soto González. I'm Chilean, and I'm also, I just get my citizenship here, so I'm and probably that's the reason why I feel free to talk the way that I do, too. I've been here for 8 years, and I did feel that pressure of being careful. Not anymore. I'm also Pentecostal, which might be interesting for some of us. We exist. We are involved here too. I'm also a father to a little girl who is almost 2. She's the light of my world. Today, I want to invite you to remember, because we need to remember our identity as sanctuary. It's not just that we are a church and we have a building. It's not just that we feel more close to God. It's that every one of us, the church, the one that follow Jesus, but even more than that, everyone that Jesus identifies with is image of God. My point is, every single person is a sanctuary. Because of that, we are sacred. Because of that, our lives have intrinsic worth. So we should live accordingly. Now, before we go to what that means for today, I would like to remember how the concept evolved through Scripture. In Exodus 25, we see God saying, "Let them make me a sanctuary, that I might dwell among them." And as a Pentecostal, I always saw the emphasis getting in the place, the gold, the textures, the walls. But I think that even from the beginning, the point was the presence of God. The fact that God chose to dwell among the people, specifically the displaced. From that moment on, sanctuary became a moving reality. A tent in the wilderness, a presence that walked with the people, a home that traveled with the exile. Later, the prophets remind us that God's true dwelling is not in temples made by human hands, but in hearts that love justice. And then in Jesus, the Word made flesh, the migrant God. Sanctuary takes on flesh and blood. In Him, the holy space became a body, and then a community, the people. And that's the memory that we must recover today, that we are the sanctuary because God chose to deal with the displaced. As Gustavo Gutierrez writes in A Theology of Liberation, the presence of God is found where the struggle in life and dignity takes place. So I think that these concentration camps are full of the presence of God, even though what we saw is suffering. Like our sister nature, each one of us, whenever we came from, reflects something about God. Therefore, we, far more than our sacred places, we are sacred. Our lives carry dignity, mystery, and worth. And maybe, just maybe, the same love, time, resources that we put into taking care of our sacred places, we should redirect it to the true sanctuary of God, which is the people. And that's the migrant. It concerns me how much time and effort we put into maintaining buildings that are empty most of the time. They tell me that this doesn't need to be boring, right? So you can say, it's fine. It makes far more sense from my perspective to care and protect the sacred lives of our migrants, brothers and sisters, where God's presence is actually found today. I think that there is hope. I think that we are far closest to that reality that we might think. I'm not here just to criticize our institutions. I think that the reality of we understanding ourselves as sanctuary is something that is actually happening in many places, and we also need to honor that today. Let me give you a couple of examples. As a migrant myself, I know how life changes when a community of faith embraces you and they lift you up and hold you through hard times. That's how I know that I found home. Not because of my papers or the way that I get here, but because of a community opened their arms to me. That's where home is. I saw God in those welcoming glances. I remember the words of Saúl Trinidad en Teología y Vida when he said, comunidad de fe es aquella comunión que crea espacios de creatividad, de libertad, de respeto y de defensa y cuidado de la vida. I had the privilege to work for the National Youth Advocate Program, specifically for La Jornada program, which dedicated to reunify unaccompanied minors, literally direct from ICE to their families. And I learned that there are hundreds of Christians, especially pastors and practitioners like you guys, creating nonprofit organizations all around the country to take care of these minors. Some even learn how to partner with state to get some resources. I saw churches renting out their physical spaces so they could literally become shelters. I saw congregations opening their worship services for us to recruit foster parents. I saw hundreds of families opening their houses to welcome newcomers, specifically minors. I myself had the privilege to saw and participate in the reunification of 600 of those minors. And I saw God in those innocent glances. In each one of them. I saw them arriving to Chicago with no shoes. And I saw them, I'm not going to cry, but I saw them hugging their parents after a couple months, after receiving all type of services, because we are doing the job, because we are being sanctuary. Now, as part of the Welcome Network, which is a nonprofit organization that works with refugees and migrants providing legal services, I saw volunteers offering rights, translation, lodging, and professional legal guidance. I see churches giving generously. I also saw them opening the spaces for us to train their churches and their volunteers. I see how even like 5K runs can help us to raise money for financing some hospitality buildings, and families opening their own homes to receive newcomers, because it's very difficult to get here and not have any assistance. Because as John Sobrino writes in Principles of Mercy, the church must be a prophetic voice that denounces injustice but also proclaims hope. So I saw God in those willing glances. As a student in McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago, and today some churches are gathering to protest outside of ICE detention centers, I learned that both the academy, and the pulpit can be our spaces of influence, right? But not an excuse to the inaction, to the silence in the face of injustice or blindness to what happened outside of our walls. Because how Joel and Martinez remind us and the people of the Go, that biblical spirituality requires that we practice a combative spirituality and not merely a contemplative one. Sometimes remember that we are sanctuary means remembering that we are called to serve, not only in our homes and our buildings and temples, but also in the streets. And I see God in those rebellious glances. That's why I believe that being sanctuary is not just our identity, but also our calling. We are called to welcome the newcomer, but also to name xenophobia as a sin, as my tocayo Daniel mentioned in Iglesia y Mygration. To give and support nonprofits, but also to demand just and compassionate immigration laws. To kneel in prayer beside the newly arrived, but also to stay tall against the fascism that today threatens the sacredness of human lives. As Matthew Sorens and Jenny Young writes in Welcoming the Stranger, it's not enough for the church to move from hostility to the immigrants to hospitality. We need to become a family. That's why I love the way that Christ redefines sanctuary from a place to a people, from a building to a body. He turns our community, our own flesh, into the sacred space, spaces of refuge, temples of the Spirit, resistant and prophetic witness. So today, more than ever, we must understand ourselves as sanctuary, as sacred refuge and holy protest, as embodied testimony of God's presence among us. I see God in us today. Do you? Gracias.